and be prepared.
Maybe I'll learn from your failures.
That is what you could do.
Yeah.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, George Reiser, Ryan Lee, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I think Dan Lanning sitting in his office going, you know what, fine, give us the toughest road to win the national championship. That's what it should be.
Oregon State in their baseball program is still operating from a position of strength, even if they're independent. But here they are in the College World Series.
And some smiles.
It's iconic.
We're not keeping score, but maybe we're keeping score.
The fastest 60 minutes in sports is on the air. It's Danny Havel.
When I wake up every morning, I say to myself, what can I do to make Baby J's life better today?
Justin Grossweiner.
Have I ever told you, Danny, that growing up I really loved ducks?
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. Sitting in for Danny today, it's Goose, Steve Mims.
Wow, we have a new intro. I had not heard that one yet. I don't know if
You
that
like
ran
it?
yesterday. I must have missed yesterday, but I like it. That's a
Thank you.
That's a good intro. Yeah, this is Steve Mims filling in for Danny. A lot of new things around here. We're on in Newport, so we're still in the Bigfoot Beverages studios, but now in Eugene and Newport, and you can listen to us on KNCU 92.7 FM in Newport. So thanks for having me in, Justin, to fill in for a couple days for Danny. And anytime Danny's gone, probably means a golf ball of his is somewhere in a sand trap.
Probably somewhere along the line. No, of course. And you're going to be in for more than a couple days, it sounds like.
Well, I know it's today and tomorrow. I haven't been informed of anything beyond that.
Well,
Must have been a production. I must have missed a production
meeting. But no, it's good to have you in for a couple days at the very least, and we're going to actually have some stuff to talk about, which is always good.
Yeah, there's a lot going on actually, and we're going to get into our guest today is going to be Stitchhead Eric Sorenson from D1 Baseball, who we're going to catch up with him, kind of write the obituary on Oregon State baseball and preview the championship series coming up with LSU and Coastal Carolina. Final segment, we're going to chat some Oregon recruiting. Good news yesterday in softball, bad news today in football. We'll catch up on a little bit of that, and a former Ducks son who's headed to Oregon State. We'll get into that in the last segment. So to kick it off today, I first off want to say welcome to the people in Newport. I haven't been able to be on the show yet since we have entered the Central Oregon coast. Congratulations to Woody here for purchasing the station. And I can tell you that it's, for me, it's about 31 years too late, because in 1994, as I graduated from the University of Oregon, I matriculated my way to the newspaper in Lincoln City, Oregon, and I would have loved to have an all-sports station with the Danny and Justin show on then. So to my peeps in Lincoln City, Newport, and the whole Central Coast, thanks for listening. It's pretty cool to be expanding the reach of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be there. I got my shirt on.
I see that. That's very cool.
Great radio, of course, as well. But yeah, it's just a big move for us, and I'm excited to be out there.
Yep. No, I know. I love Newport. I love many things about Newport. I love the Newport Seafood and Wine Festival. I go pretty much every February. Wonderful hotels over there. Some good restaurants down on the bay. So awesome to be over there. And I love Lincoln City as well. Like I say, I spent about first 2 years and 2 months out of college was spent as the sports editor and the managing editor of the Lincoln City News Guard. So
a lot going on around there.
There was a lot going on there. For 20-something, Steve Mims was really was hanging out on the scenes. So I love that place over there. So anyway, we will get into it. You know, it's a Thursday, Justin, which normally means I come in and talk about how big my softball game is going to be that night. Mm-hmm. But I have unfortunate news that for the first time in 5 years of senior softball, I am missing a game due to injury.
Oh, really?
You may not have seen I'm limping.
I did not see that.
Right calf strain. I am not Tyrese Halliburton.
Wow, I have a right calf strain too.
Well, I don't want to hear that it lasts long, because mine's been a week now.
Well, mine... I got mine in
I know.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear
November or something.
Well, I got mine last Thursday trying to burst out of the box to get to first base, and I turned, and it was a feel. I don't know if you had the same thing, but I had a feeling I had not had before, to where it was like, uh-oh, that's something wrong. I've pulled things before and been but this one was sort of like, stop running, something's not good here.
Mine felt like somebody kicked me, but I looked around and nobody was there. And everybody that I've told that to says, is your Achilles okay?
I always have heard that about the Achilles.
Yeah, so I think my Achilles is okay. I can run. I've tested it. It seems fine. But it was definitely that type of injury where you kind of immediately just are like, nope, I'm done. Yep. I'm done for the day.
Yep. So I was out. That was the second inning, and I'm not going to play tonight. I'll be out supporting the Ninkasi Ninjas, which is our team. But looks like I'm out for a week or two. But, yeah, it's been nothing but I've been icing. I've been rubbing oils on it, all sorts of lotions. I got a wrap on it. I thought maybe
don't
I could
stretch
get
it
back
or anything.
A little bit, no stretching?
I don't think so. I think you're supposed to let it rest for a little bit, and then once it heals,
then you
stretch it out because it's going to get tight. What happens, it sounds like, is the muscle, the fibers are usually like straight, but they get all tangled.
Okay.
And so that's the problem is you got to figure out a way to straighten
I haven't been doing that
again.
because it hurts so much. The worst part is also when you add in the fact that I'm 20-some-odd years older and you getting out of bed in the morning becomes even more
I have the same
difficult.
problem.
So it's been tough. But anyway, so I can't tell you about my softball game tonight because I won't be playing that. But it does carry over to, I tell you what, if Tyrese Halliburton plays tonight, now granted, he has a little bit more medical availabilities. I'm sure he's got a few more cold tubs, shots, and massages that he can get than I can get. But I would be surprised if somebody could play because, like I say, I've been walking around limping for a week. I don't know if he can get out there and play tonight. But that's kind of, it seems like the story tonight, right? They go home to Indiana. Yeah. If he plays and somehow pulls off, and looks good out there, but without him, as good as T.J. McConnell was in Game 5, it seems hard to imagine a Pacers team without him could hold off the Thunder, who really seem to be hitting their stride right now.
Yeah, it just seems like it was one of, and I don't remember if I said this to you. I felt that Game 4, if the Thunder would have lost, then I thought the Pacers really would have had a chance to win. I thought they needed to get up 3-1 because the second that the Thunder got some momentum, it's exactly what I thought. They started to really get it rolling. And I do think that it's just going to be all about what Tyrese Halliburton can do. I mean, he's been sort of the magic for them, if you will. And just speaking on my own right calf, it still doesn't feel very good, I have to say. So it's getting better, but I can't imagine for him after, what has it been, not even a week?
No,
so,
it's been a couple days. So
I mean, he's going to be playing on one leg, it sounds like. And is he the type of player that can just gut it out and make some plays and make something happen? Maybe. I mean, he's done some magical things so far this postseason, but I'm a little skeptical. I think that it will come down to just if they can make it through, it's going to be a player like Pascal Siakam or Benedict Mathurin or Nembhard or somebody that's going to have to go off for like 30, 40 points. Yeah,
and McConnell can fill in for him. We saw him. He actually looked really good the other night, and that's almost a debate too. I mean, do you have Halliburton at 50% or do you throw in a full-time guy and tell Halliburton, rest it and see? You can't rest him for 7 because you got to win it to get to 7, so you can't say, hey, sit out and get to 7. So
it's like, how effective is he really going to be? Because he wasn't effective in that last game.
And he played 34 minutes. And Carlisle's been kind of beaten up for playing him a lot. So does Carlisle look back and say, hey, yeah, maybe I should have rested him more? Or does he think, hey, this is my guy and we're going to ride him to the end? I don't know.
I just think they know that they needed every sort of break to go their way in the series. And it didn't. And so I think they're just in a spot where I honestly don't even see them winning this game, I have to say.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I'm with you.
It just seems like there's blood in the water.
And I thought the Thunder were playing really well. I mean, Williams goes for 40. We know how good Shea is. Feels almost like even if Halliburton was there, that this is kind of the Thunder have hit their stride. Certainly they feel good about winning in 7, but I'm with you. I think they probably take care of it tonight.
When did Halliburton injure his leg? Was it Game 5?
I think because he was hobbled coming into the last one.
Right.
So I think it was Game 4. I think it was the end of Game 4.
Okay, so it was the end of Game 4. Yeah. I mean, they could have won that game. That's the thing is they were up. I think they were up 5-10 at some point.
Let it get
4
away.
or 5 minutes left, and then the Thunder just went on this crazy run, and they basically done what they've done all season long. Is they've just played great defense. They are basically mugging people at half court, and it's just tenacious, and it's just hard to stop. And the Pacers sort of matched that.
Yeah.
So that's maybe why they had some success early on. But they also had that magic of Tyrese Halliburton and what he was doing. There was like a focal point of it. And I don't think without him, there's that focal point of, hey, like this is something we can go to really consistently.
Yeah.
And I think he's just the engine that makes things go.
Yeah, we'll see tonight. And listeners, tune in tomorrow. You'll have 2 guys with sore hamstrings who will review the performance of Tyrese Halliburton with a sore right hamstring. So you'll have really some firsthand analysis of Tyrese Halliburton tonight. Something you can't get from any Windhorst, any of these NBA experts, unless they're dealing with a sore hammy like me and JR. We're gonna have better analysis of it tomorrow. So that'll be in there tomorrow. News came out yesterday, right before you went on, that the Lakers are up for sale for $10 billion, and I couldn't help but think that must have made Jody Allen and the folks putting the Portland Trailblazers up for sale pretty happy, because even though they're obviously not in that stratosphere, the old rising tide lifts all boats.
100%.
We saw the $6 billion for the Celtics, and now it goes to 10. I know the Blazers. I think I've heard people on Canzano's show on this station after us talk about it somewhere going to be 4.5 to 5.5 billion. I'm guessing that number now is probably closer to 5.5 than the 4.5, just because we've got another franchise that's going up for so many. But it would be interesting to see. It seems like, I grew up with Jerry Buss running the team. We've seen Jeannie Buss and her brother running it. They've been successful. But I also see a lot of people talk about how they haven't, they've kind of run it as a family business. They've always kind of taken care of their guys, maybe haven't put as much into scouting and other things like that. So I'm interested to see a guy, and we've seen what this ownership group has done with the Dodgers, to where they have just gone out and basically tried to beat up the rest of the league by, doing everything they can in terms of scouting and bringing on payroll. Like the Lakers needed to have somebody who could fund a super team when they already are in a position to where they've been able to build super teams. But this seems like, if you're a Laker fan, a pretty good sign that you're being bought by somebody who might even invest more into it than the Busses did.
Yeah, which is amazing to think about. And if they can harness whatever they've done with the Dodgers and bring it over to the Lakers, which is exactly what you're saying. I mean, the luxury tax is not going to be an issue financially.
Yeah.
Yeah. And man, if you want to get some hot takes out of me about the Lakers and what they've done over the last 15 years, or hot takes out of me, just bring up the Lakers. Because, man, I think that they have been one of the luckiest franchises out there. I don't think they've made almost any good decisions. I think that basically they've gotten super lucky, and they've had things break their way. They've had a ton of lottery luck to bring up, get guys like Lonzo Ball and the number 4 pick in that draft, where they traded it for Anthony Davis, and they became the most obvious place to Anthony Davis.
Brandon Ingram, they got a Brandon Ingram.
Exactly. No, all these guys, and then LeBron just decides, because there's no place that really made sense for LeBron to go, and so he says, okay, well, I guess I'll just go to Los Angeles. And then they basically, they do the Westbrook trade, and they make all these, they have a finals team, and they get something together, and then they just do these horrible moves. And I don't really know how good of a GM, I'm forgetting his name right now.
Rob Pelinka
is. I really don't. I mean, didn't he win GM of the year recently?
Well, the Doncic trade kind of locked that up for him.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. That's another thing I'm talking about.
He made the ridiculous. Call. If nothing else, he made the call.
Because they didn't call anybody else. Like, it's honestly infuriating to just talk about it.
That's right. He didn't even make the call. He just answered the call.
Exactly. Like, they just said Anthony Davis for Luka, and he was like, okay. So, no, I think the Lakers have... I know I have a friend that's a Lakers fan, and he's very happy that Jeannie Buss is not going to be making some decisions. So I think that there has been a little bit of sense from the Lakers fan base of, hey, Jerry did, X, Y, and Z, and Jeannie got us a championship. And didn't she? I guess was she the
2020?
But was she for any of the previous ones, like 2010?
Yeah, those ones there. I think that was right at the end of Jerry. And he might have been alive, but she was running it, because remember, she was dating Phil Jackson. Who was coaching them. So she was running it, but I think
this is like my
childhood,
Steve. These are my childhood storylines. So I mean, I think it's just great for the Lakers, because if they basically can do what the Dodgers have been doing, which is just put as much money and assets, and basically you can't complain about what the Dodgers are doing from any other fan base, because they're so good and they just are so all in, and that's exactly what you would want your team to do too.
Yeah. It is, but there is a big difference between the baseball and the basketball
100%.
In the sense that you mentioned a luxury tax, which, you can go over it, but there are penalties at that point. You can't do buyout guys.
Yes.
Trades have to be one, whereas in baseball, you can put together the super roster if you're willing to pay for it, and it doesn't hamper you in terms of future things. Like we've seen in NBA teams now are having a hard time putting together 3 superstars on a max deal, because if you do, you kind of don't have room for anything else. You can't have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani in the NBA and still have, the other guys that they've got there, Will Smith and some of those guys. So there'll be a difference there. I don't think you can sign a guy for $70 million and defer $68 million of it to the future in the NBA.
Which is another thing, man. I think baseball needs to get a handle on that a little bit. I do think that's one advantage the Dodgers have been able to do, and other teams theoretically could as well, but I think it's ridiculous. And I have no problem with the players taking those deals, because as a player, would you not want to go to a team that has Ohtani and Betts, and they're offering you the most money, I think in the NBA, look no further than the Suns, right? Who got together. They tried to do it, and they got Devin Booker, and they have Kevin Durant, and really Bradley Beal is like a shell of himself at this point, so I wouldn't call him a third superstar or anything, but they certainly haven't been able to do anything else. And I think they basically have to blow it up at this point. Yeah,
because it hampers you. I mean, that's the thing. And we've seen teams do that, all the time in the NBA. Whereas, again, in baseball, you can just cut somebody. If it turns out they didn't work out, you can cut them, and you're paying it, but you're not facing. The NBA has come in with this new collective bargaining and really made it penal for you that if you got 3 guys making, max deals, you can't, you're going to go over this second apron, they always call it, and then it's going to limit the things you can do future-wise roster building. Whereas, and obviously Major League Baseball is number 2 with the minor leagues. You're bringing players up. Although the Lakers are doing that with Bronny, right? They drafted him to be their minor league player.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started on the Bronny. Don't get me started on the self-congratulating stuff about Bronny James, and I guess he is turning out to be an okay player. But man, the stuff about the son, oh man, don't even get me started.
Yep. So there's the. But again, I think it'll be interesting to see how it affects Portland because. The Blazers sale was announced earlier. Now, this one wasn't an open sale because Walter, who's buying the team, had a interest in the team and had a right of first refusal. So it sounds like they kind of came to him and said, hey, we're going to put this thing up, but you have the right of first refusal. He exercised that and bought it. So this wasn't an open market and auction type thing to where, he just kind of had to meet their price type situation, whereas it's a little different with the Blazer thing. A, it's an estate that's selling it, and B, it's supposed to be going sort of as a fiduciary deal to where it should, depending on what Paul Allen wrote in his will, whether he said, hey, for this team, if it's close between a local, I'd rather keep one or not. But this is one that's going to go up, and we're going to see. We kind of thought, hey, the Blazers are, the next one up. Well, it turns out the Lakers came in and jumped in there. But now we'll see on the Portland side. Like I say, I think if nothing else, this improves the price. And hey, credit Paul Allen. His money's all going to the foundation, which is going to be philanthropic. So hey, we always sit here and say we don't care how much millionaires make, and they're having penny fights and this and that. But hey, if this ends up sending $500,000 more or $500 million more to charity somewhere, all in favor of it for the Blazers.
Sure. And really, and I've been kind of banging the drum on this about all of the ownership changes, is that really the franchise that you root for, it's all about the ownership.
Yeah.
It always is, except for if you're a Packers fan, which is why I love to be a Packers fan. But it really, you look at the problems that some organizations have, I think they're systemic from what the ownership does. You look at the Knicks forever, like the Clippers with what was his name again?
Donald Sterling.
Donald Sterling. Yeah, man, that was a fun
Not
saga.
a very good owner.
No, but just,
owner.
I mean, but it's not even just like those types of owners too. There's just some owners that don't know they just don't quite know how to do it, and they haven't figured it out. And I think that's the reason why we see some teams that are just so consistently good over the course of years, and some that are just consistently bad.
Yep.
And so I think that for the Blazers, this is an opportunity. I remember as a Cubs fan when the Tribune sold the Cubs, and then the Ricketts came in. It was just like, wow, like. They came in and they renovated at Wrigley Field, and they had all these things that they wanted to do, and then they built up the World Series roster. Yeah. So there's a chance that if you get a new ownership, they see things differently, and they can bring in things that are just so positive for a team. So, but it also could go the other way. You just really never know. But I think that there should be more room for. I think there should be room for hope for the Blazer fans.
Yeah, and I feel like we're seeing owners coming in a little younger now. It used to be 70-year-old guys. Basically old white guys who are coming in and buying teams. But now we're seeing some younger folks. I think the guy who bought the Celtics looked a little younger. Walter from the Dodgers is 65. But I think there could be a chance that a Blazer owner, Ishbia's in his 40s. We're seeing a lot kind of a younger blood come in, I think, and take it over. And those are kind of ones that get fans a little bit more excited, which is good.
How much, and I can't speak to this too much, more now are there these ownership groups?
Yeah, because you have to have, if it's a $10 billion team, the lead governor, my understanding is, has to have at least 15% of that. So to even be one of them, you have to have $1.5 billion. And there aren't a whole lot of people in this world with $1.5 billion, much less $10 billion. So, or if you had $10 billion that you're looking to invest in it. So basically, you have to have one person who can put up the 15%. But you're trying now, more. Yeah, you're not seeing Paul Allens anymore.
Right.
You're not seeing Jerry Busses who come in and buy the team.
Like a face.
Yeah.
It's like, this
you're still seeing the
now.
face as the governor, like the Celtics.
But
the guy,
one face, not just a face, and then
but then you're seeing
them.
that there's a bunch of holdings companies and this and that behind them, and there's minority ownership, which is what Walter was. He was a minority owner that then moves up. So, you're right. We're not seeing, the Blazers, when I grew up, Larry Weinberg was the owner, and then Paul Allen. I mean, that was the owner. Mm-hmm. Now it's all ownership groups because, again, the costs have just gotten way more than one person can afford. I mean, you can't. Yeah, you can't have totally a bidding. You can't have a bidding war and expect some individual to come in and pay $10 billion for it. So.
And I think that's kind of why you hear sometimes too about wasn't Shaq now? Isn't he? Partial.
Yeah.
So you hear about these ex-athletes all the time. I think Charles Woodson is now a part owner of the Browns maybe?
I don't remember, but
or something like that. Where they just Tom Brady of the Raiders. They go to some random team. It seems like sometimes, but those are the guys with the money to do it.
Yep, absolutely. But it takes a lot of them to combine together. So. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to chat College World Series. We got Eric Sorenson. You know him as Stitchhead a nickname that Danny didn't give him, but he still goes by on this show. We're going to have him. We're going to chat about Oregon State's departure from Omaha and the championship series that's set up between Coastal Carolina and LSU. This is Steve Mims. I'm filling in for Danny. You're listening to Danny and Justin on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. Welcome back into the Danny and Justin show on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. This is Steve Mims filling in for Danny, and excited to bring on our guest now. We have Eric Sorenson. You know him as Stitchhead. He is with D1 Baseball, and he's coming at us from Omaha, where it looked in the ninth inning last night, Stitch, like there might be a game for you to cover today, but then it kind of fell apart in a way that can only really happen to Arkansas, it seems. So what happens on a day off in Omaha? Now you got two of them in a row.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about the ninth inning probably for 30, 40 minutes on that alone, but. Yeah, no, day off today meant going to the Drover and finally getting myself a steak at the world-famous Drover, I should say.
Yes.
And that was a damn good lunch for me. That's what I did for my day off.
Awesome. Let's chat. I mean, in Arkansas, Oregon State fans will recall, I mean, it's almost too heartbreaking to let this happen to a team twice, but I think the Oregon State folks call it the Arkansas Triangle, in 2018 when they had the final out there and let it go. Last night, your All-American shortstop just makes kind of a brain fart and throws to third instead of the double play. And, of course, anytime that happens, something disastrous is going to happen. It's a line drive off a guy's shoulder and then a line drive off the glove. Just watching that last night, did it feel like, oh, my God, it's happening again to the Razorbacks?
Yeah. In fact, it's funny. I have a friend of mine I grew up with. He's a huge Arkansas fan. And I'm out on the field after the game. And I get a text from him. He says, his text reads, "This is way worse than 2018. I was like, oh, man, how bad can that be if that's bad enough? But, yeah, this was man, you really kind of felt bad. Obviously, you felt bad for Arkansas. You feel bad for as somebody who didn't have a rooting interest. I mean, you felt bad for Dave Van Horn. I kind of if it has to be an SEC team to win the title, I'd like it to be Dave Van Horn because – as a kid growing up in Nebraska, Nebraska baseball was nothing, and then he came along and made it something, made it really big, and really made that program go. So he kind of set the seeds for Nebraska to have a good baseball program, or at least competitive. I mean, they're not great every year like Arkansas, granted. But yeah, just felt bad. Just felt bad for Dave Van Horn and the players. That you just feel bad enough for them. Anytime anybody loses like that, you just feel bad enough,
Yeah, and this College World Series has turned into a bit of the survival. Whoever cannot shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, we saw Oregon State the game before down 3. They rally not only to tie it, but then you've got second and third with nobody out, and it's strikeout, pop out. And then the bottom of the inning, they load the bases, and then there's a strikeout, and you're thinking, my gosh, these guys are going to do the same thing, but then it ends up walking them off. So with Louisville, it just feels like, these teams, whoever can kind of not shoot themselves in the foot at the end has kind of been survival of the fittest throughout this thing that brings us to Coastal and LSU at this point.
Yeah. In fact, I made the comment that I said the other day on another radio show, I think it was, I said, look, can't we just have Oregon State and Louisville play for the title? Those have been entertaining games. I mean, granted, you're right. It comes down to heartbreak oftentimes. And that's kind of just what it does. That's kind of what happens in Omaha sometimes. And, we saw Ava Arquette. He's, rock solid, going to be a top 5, top 10, whatever draft pick this June. And he had a couple of screwballs go, kind of fall out of his hand, and you just don't expect that. And Aloy, the shortstop for Arkansas, like you were talking about, I just don't expect him to have that brain fart. You just figure he had enough time to make that double play. When I was watching it on the field, I was in the photo wells at the time. I just thought, oh, well, Milam's a pretty fast runner. I guess he just decided to go to third because he knew Milam. But then I saw highlights later. Yeah. I was like, oh, my God, he totally could have had a double play there. So, yeah, those kind of things just happen, man. And it seems, obviously it's amplified because you're on the biggest stage in college baseball. And in some cases, or in these cases, it ended some seasons. So tough place to keep you cool. It's totally different from the other 60-some-odd games in the year.
Yeah, no doubt. And now we end up with LSU, Coastal Carolina. And the world will look at it as David and Goliath, but as a baseball guy, Coastal won a national. I mean, these are two teams with recent national titles. Yes, LSU's the biggest fan base in the sport. Coastal is seen as, kind of the little underdog, but they haven't been at all. This sets up,
Right.
I think, this is a pretty entertaining matchup, the two that it comes down to.
Yeah, I think, if you ask me in February who would win between LSU and Coastal, you'd obviously probably say LSU. And Coastal, I have to tell you guys, Coastal has surprised me this year. I did not expect this to be this kind of team. 55 wins now, I guess. After Dave Gilmore, the guitarist from Pink Floyd. No, Gary Gilmore. After he retired, I just you don't want to replace a legend, and Kevin Schnall's done a great job in getting them to this point. But getting back to it, the way things kind of bounce now, it just seems like it's totally an even game out there. I could see Morrison pitching for Coastal Carolina probably be the first game him and Cade Anderson going toe to toe. That's just going to be a great heavyweight matchup, kind of, and I just think it's really pretty even. Although, if you have to go with the intangibles, well, you have to go with LSU for their luck, their blind luck. It's like Les Miles is coaching them again. Some of those bonehead plays work out for them, and of course, they got a little bit more of a fan base here because baseball means a lot more to them, I guess, than it should. So, a little bit of an edge LSU-wise just because of the intangibles. But, you don't win it on intangibles, and this is going to be a great series. Yeah,
I know when I went to the College World Series in 2005 with Oregon State, people were saying LSU didn't go that year, and fans were saying, man, it's not as much fun when LSU's not in it. I mean, we hate those guys, but the parties are much better. The tailgates, everything's better when LSU's here. So I know that'll go well with them. Let me ask you this. For a team like Coastal, now that we're moving into this revenue-sharing era, and I know baseball's not going to get a large percentage of that 20 point. Some, particularly schools from LSU. Is it going to be harder moving ahead in this revenue share NIL world for a Coastal to continue to be one of the big boys? Or do you think a school like that, where baseball's kind of its top program right now, even more than football, can get enough to stay competitive at this? Or do you think that the way this sport's moving, we might see a Coastal have a tougher time hanging with these guys?
Nah, I think a place like a Coastal Carolina, even as you said, even if they have football, Kevin Schnall can just point at the scoreboard and say, look, here's what we've done. Don't we? We deserve this more than football does, I think they'll definitely make sure to make amends for that. And if you're talking about, mid-majors, I mean, places like Dallas Baptist, of course, it's the biggest sport that, out there. UC Irvine is another one where it's, they don't have football, but I don't think the Davids, so to speak, and I know Coastal Carolina bristles at being called Davids, but I don't think those days are done yet necessarily, and in this new day and age. I think I might have told you guys before, the ones I worry about the most are like the California state schools. Yeah. They're just not heavily funded, and they never were meant to be, these kind of the powerhouse athletic programs. So the days of like Cal State Fullerton or Long Beach, or even if you want to stretch it out a little bit more, like Rice University, I just don't know if they'll ever get back to what they were without a Wayne Graham, So those are kind of the ones I worry about more. I worry less about the Coastal Carolina, like I said, Coastal Carolina's, Dallas Baptist, those kind of schools. I think are the ones they'll still emphasize the sport a lot, and will keep up with the pace, I think.
Yeah, and I'd put Oregon State there too, in the sense that, if we're looking at football versus baseball, again, football's going to get the money. They draw the 40,000. But Mitch Canham can certainly go into a meeting with Scott Barnes and say, I know you're giving a lot to football, but look what we've done. We've outperformed. We've put this school on a national stage, 8 times now in 20 years with 3 championships. I feel like whatever NIL is at Oregon State, the Bees will be able to, and now regardless of staying independent and what that new Pac-12 may look like in 2 years, I think they can continue to bring in a Trent Caraway and Iva Arquette, some big names. I think they'll get the funding for it because, again, it's a school that might be in the shadow of football overall, but their records are better in baseball, and that's become their marquee sport, and I think that'll force them to continue to invest in it as they have. Yeah,
and this is obviously – baseball is a marquee sport for them. I mean, this kind of like I was just saying, you can, or you were just saying, I should say, that you can just point at the records. You can point at the scoreboard, as they say, and say, this is what we've done for this athletic program, and, let's keep it going. I would certainly put Oregon State in that same category just because, and their fan following is so good, so great, whatever you want to say. And just, they had a good showing out here of a good contingency of fans. And I was not going to be surprised if Oregon State had played in this second weekend of the College World Series. Just didn't quite work out for them. But yeah, man, what a program they have! I'm just so excited. I'm just geeked about it. Because thinking back, like when I first moved out to Los Angeles back in the early 2000s, Oregon State. To think about Oregon State playing in the College World Series was laughable, and it's just like, oh, come on, how could that happen? The rest of the schools quit playing baseball or something. But man, to see that school of all places out of nowhere became a national power was really cool, especially that it's a cold weather program. So I love that. Being from Omaha, I love seeing these teams from all over make it to Omaha or have good programs.
And what did this season for the Beavers tell you? Because obviously there was from the outside, at least, there was question marks coming in of, hey, like, what is this going to look like with the independent schedule? And here they are. They made it to the College World Series. So what questions were answered for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the first thing that kind of jumped out at me is that they only had, I think they only had 20 home games scheduled actually to play, and they only ended up playing 19 in the regular season, that is. And the first thing that jumped out at me was, holy cow, you know what this is going to do for their RPI? This is actually not a bad thing in some ways. Yeah. Because, they're still not playing – they're still playing good schedule. They're playing a lot of Big West teams and some of them, really good ones too, like Irvine and Fullerton and whatnot. But I just thought their RPI was going to jump this year, and it did. And I think it's good because the West always gets screwed in the RPI formula. For whatever reason, the West never got a good shake on that. But with the way things worked this year, the West got a little bit better because they kind of cross-pollinated with all those schools from across the country, and that helped them. But, yeah, Oregon State, the season they had was just exemplary. I loved following them this year. Except when I gave good props to Oregon, I got a lot of crap from Oregon State fans. But other than that, because Oregon had a great season this year too, I really love that program too. But yeah, no, it was. I thought it said a lot about Mitch Canham. I thought it said a lot about the program that it excelled with these kind of obstacles in front of it. And I was really happy to see that happen, that they would play so well and get a national seed and beat a Florida State. That's just great. I love that for West Coast baseball. I love that for Northwest baseball too.
Yeah, and next year they'll have the independent schedule again. I almost wonder if it works out well again. I mean, do they even consider maybe continuing? Because the Pac-12, the way baseball's set up right now, Boise State doesn't have it. Utah State, Colorado State, Washington State hasn't been great. Gonzaga's kind of average. I mean, maybe Fresno State and San Diego State, but it'll be a tough conference. I mean, their RPI is going to get hurt in a conference like that too. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, they'll obviously schedule, their surprise Arizona for the first 3 weeks and that. But, kind of for them, unfortunately, as they rebuild the Pac-12, it's based more on football than baseball. And it's going to be tough for them to even build a tough schedule now, just the way the teams are, setting up now coming into the new Pac-12.
Yeah, man, because you think about some of the teams you mentioned that are going to be a part of it. Now, I might get some of them wrong, but like Fresno State, San Diego State, Washington State, those teams those are teams that normally have to win their conference to get in the NCAA tournament. Normally, that's the case. Especially Fresno State, they've won Mountain West tournament the last 2 years and made it to the NCAA tournament. But I would hate to see it become a thing where it gets a little watered down and Oregon State has to rely on winning a conference championship. But again, I think Mitch knows that and is ahead of the wheel on that one and will schedule even better, I should say, this next season. I think he'll have to. Yeah. But they always do, and they always play pretty good schedule. I think it just has to get amped up a little bit more for next year.
Yeah, we're talking to Eric Sorenson. You know him as Stitch Head at D1 Baseball. Appreciate you taking your off day to spend a little bit of time with us. Switching over, you'd mentioned Oregon. They just had a coaching change with Blake Hawksworth left to Oklahoma State. Opens up a pitching coach shot for Oregon. Did you know that he was kind of a guy that was being eyed by some others, or was that move a surprise by you? And do you have any names that you'd throw out there kind of on an early watch list for Wasikowski to be seeking out?
Well, I knew Blake had a good rep throughout college baseball circles, so it doesn't shock me that assistant coaches do move on. That doesn't shock me much. I thought he did a really exemplary job with Oregon pitching the last 2 seasons, just from seeing them in the postseason down at Santa Barbara last year, and this year I thought it got a little bit better. They kind of got snake bitten in the regionals, but had another great season. So no, on the mound, I should say. So no, I wasn't surprised to see Blake kind of get, be hot property out there. But I'm not a huge. I know Kendall Rogers kind of keeps up with that assistant coach carousel a little bit more. But think about it this way, though, guys. I mean, Coach Wazikowski's got a great reputation now. He's proven he can win. I mean, he even won at Purdue pretty well, and he wins, now at Oregon. He's really amped that program up, inched it up a little bit more even. So he's going to, and they're going to have the money too. I think they're, this is Oregon. I think they're going to have the money to get somebody good. I don't know any names offhand, but it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be a big concern if they hire. I don't think they're going to hire the wrong guy, so to speak, or not have the money to bring in somebody that has a good reputation.
Yeah, no doubt. And hey, if you look and say, hey, who was the pitching coach? Well, Jake Angier, he got a job at New Mexico State. Blake Hawksworth, he gets Oklahoma State. This has been a stepping stone for some folks, so it's not like it's been a graveyard for coaches. So a good spot there as well. Hey, Eric, I appreciate it. I know you said you got that Omaha steak in for lunch. So that probably means a nap is coming up. And then if LSU's still in town, anytime LSU's still in town, I know downtown Omaha is going to be hopping tonight, so it'll be a pretty good night to get out. I will let you get that nap in before you head out on downtown Omaha. But again, I know it's crazy for you right now, and to take a couple minutes out of your day on an off day to speak with us out here in Eugene, we really appreciate it. So thanks, Stitchhead. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. No, I'd like to thank you guys for keeping college baseball in Eugene, Oregon. Keeping it prominent. I think that's kind of a huge key, actually. Believe it or not, I appreciate you for having me on.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Eric Sorenson, Stitchhead. Thanks, man. Enjoy your evening and the rest of your time in Omaha. This is Steve Mims. You're listening to the Danny and Justin Show on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. Welcome back into the Danny and Justin Show on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. Cool to say that. Thanks to everybody listening on KNCU 92.7 FM over in Newport. As it heats up around here, I wouldn't mind getting to the coast for a day. Maybe we'll set up a Newport, a real Bigfoot Beverages studio and go do a remote somewhere at Moe's or something like that in Newport.
I think that's definitely something we should do. The coast is great. I've only been there, 4 or 5 times, I have to say, in my time in Oregon, which has been about 10 years. I got here in 2015, so not enough times, I would say.
We got to get Woody on a remote for that one, so we'll hit over there. Some news came in today recruiting wise. Wasn't great for Oregon, although not totally unexpected. It doesn't sound like either. Brandon Arrington, who's a 5-star athlete, sounds like he's going to be a defensive back, number 29 player in the 2026 class for 247 Sports, down to Oregon and Texas A&M. And he picked the Aggies. So Brandon Arrington spurns Oregon, goes to Texas A&M. I know I don't even have to look at message boards. I don't have to look at Twitter to know Oregon fans are saying, God, we missed out on another one, or we missed out on another one, missed out on another one. Missed out on Jared Curtis, 5-star, who went to Georgia. Christian Cantwell, who was the 5-star to Miami, now to A&M. Look, when you're finishing number 2 to 5 stars, that's not terrible. You want to get them. But they finished second to Dante Moore, and he ends up coming. I think as you lose on these guys, you see the possibility that maybe down the road. But also, again, if you're down to the final 2 with some 5 stars, it shows you're doing the right thing. Yeah, you'd like to see one of these turn the right way for you. And we'll see now. Like I say, the rev share goes in on July 1st. You wonder if some schools are holding back a little. Maybe Oregon comes in with another offer for these guys NIL-wise once they get closer to the signing dates. That's the other thing. These guys aren't signing today. They're committing. We see people change their minds quite a bit. But Brandon Arrington's kind of a tough loss for Oregon fans who have been hoping to grab one of these 5 stars in the cycle.
And isn't Texas A&M kind of? I know Oregon kind of has that reputation of they just offer the most money, but isn't Texas A&M kind of really that school?
If you're in Texas, you're that school too.
Yeah. And I just think it's interesting, right? Because these athletes it's almost like in the NBA and the NFL where you kind of get to know a player throughout the draft process because you never know when they're going to come around again, especially with the transfer portal where you get to have a relationship with some of these guys and it doesn't work out in their first school. These guys are willing to leave after one season.
The quarterback from Cal didn't last more than 3 practices in the spring.
Yeah, he looked around at some of the other arms and was like, I don't think I'm going
to... Dallas Wilson, the receiver, didn't even show up on campus and he went to Florida.
Right.
So, that's what I say. People talk about, the rumor will be, Brandon Arrington signed with A&M. Oh, he didn't. He's not signed until December. Everybody's still... I can promise you Oregon hasn't stopped contacting Jared Curtis. They haven't stopped calling Christian Cantwell. You still reach out and, hey, wish you guys the best, just checking in with you.
Right.
Because if something comes up... you want to be there to take advantage of it.
There's no reason not to keep a relationship.
Yeah,
just look
absolutely.
at Dante Moore. I mean, like you said, he went to UCLA, and then it was like, hey, it looks like Oregon's a good situation.
And that would have been
now.
easy for, he had Oregon the whole way, changed it last minute. It would have been easy for Lanning those guys to say, throw up a middle finger and say, hey, you kind of dragged us along and ditched us at the end.
But they did it because of Bo,
but they didn't.
Because Bo came back. And so they didn't. I don't think they necessarily knew what was going to happen, and then it just kind of the domino effect.
Yeah.
So I think everybody understood.
Kept it open for him, so that was good. Oregon currently is they have 8 commits, I believe it is right now, and they're like 33rd in the 247. Again, I know people are freaking out because they're used to Oregon now being top 10. There is still quite a few months left. I believe 6 until we get to December. So that they've got the Kendra Harrison, who's the tight end, the running back with Tredarian
I'm really
Bell.
excited about him, by the way.
Yeah, me too. Tony Cumberland, who's been playing at Willamette and is going to be joined by Valami Mawala, who is a 3-star DL who's going to be at Willamette as well. I've actually heard Kendra Harrison may be at Willamette as well, playing football and basketball, and would probably be the best high school basketball player in the state of Willamette.
No way.
I have heard that rumor.
What the heck is going on at Willamette? I'm excited to cover them this football season.
Oh yeah,
I
saw somewhere they won a 7-on-7 at the U of O camp. So Willamette's got some stuff going on, and they may have more than a couple Oregon recruits coming. Messiah Hampton was the one they got, the receiver last week.
New York.
So the next big one is Ryder Lyons, who I love that name. That's just a good quarterback
100%.
name, Ryder Lyons.
Yeah.
Who I believe
sounds like a movie name.
I think it's Oregon and BYU, and the 24th. So that would be next Tuesday. Is now going to be his date. So we'll find out. The next big domino to drop for Oregon will be Ryder Lyons, and we'll see after they lose Curtis. They're looking for a quarterback in the class, and that'll be the next one that we'll find out about next week.
And he always, to me, made a little bit more sense than Curtis because I believe that Lyons is a mission guy.
Yeah.
So he's going to be gone for a season. So if you're looking at what Oregon's current situation is, I think he's more like a 2027 guy, isn't he?
Yeah. I think if he sits out that first year, yeah.
So that makes sense for Oregon's timeline. They have more than one quarterback that I think could play over the next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And so Ryder Lyons comes in 2027. Maybe he gets the starting job then if he's here. Maybe he would wait another year. But I think that would make a little bit more sense than Jared Curtis, who'd be a real 2026 guy. And then you have, they just have a lot of quarterbacks. I like that room a lot.
We'll see how many of them stick around and
100%.
And how it goes there.
You can't only have one out there on the field.
The other guy we're waiting on is Emmanuel Ahianacho, who is the offensive lineman. That's the other kind of big one that the Ducks are waiting on as well. So,
and he was kind of who they pivoted to, right, after Cantwell?
Yep, he was the one they went to there. So in good recruiting news for Oregon, the transfer portal opened up in softball. When I was here a couple weeks ago, I was ruining that, boy, can they hang on to these players?
Banging that drum.
And they have so far held on to everybody, and yesterday was a big addition. So tell us about Elon.
Yes, Elon Butler from Cal. And so she has a 328 career average with a 621 career slugging percentage. She plays infield and outfield. She is really good, and she fills a big position of need for them, which is going to be replacing their entire outfield.
Yeah,
right.
Lachars
and then and I'm forgetting the right fielder's name, of course.
they've got
Patman.
the 3. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. The outfield needs to be rebuilt, and that's a heck of a start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think she had 37 home runs throughout her career there. So she seems like she's probably a little bit more of a double sitter.
Yeah.
37 home runs through 3 seasons. That's about 11 or 12, right? So more of a doubles hitter.
Good math.
Not bad. But big addition for them, obviously, just getting a All-American, and you haven't lost anyone. I think that's the biggest key, right, is that you've kind of added now to, you knew you had to replace some parts, and you had to kind of move on from version 7 to version 8 now?
8, yep.
Okay, I'm just making sure my numbers are right. But now you're version 8, and version 8's going to look a little bit like version 7, but you got to add some, and this is a really great start. And they don't need as much pitching as I think they did to their lineup. So, man, adding an All-American, like, how can you complain?
Yeah. And to me, and I'm going to get back into my conspiracy theory, what this also tells me is, and again, I'm just reading tea leaves here, maybe they've got Grind and the 4 freshmen all coming back. Because I would think if you're in an NIL world these days, as Melissa Lombardi is, and you're having to divvy it out, you're probably putting your bulk of your money into the 4 freshmen and Grind coming back. So if you had some, and I'm sure this was a bidding war and it took some money to get an All-American coming here, that leads me to believe that maybe, since we haven't heard from any of them that they're leaving, that maybe they've already reached financial agreements with all those 5, and so they're here. So that's the part of this that I think is the most interesting, is that Now, or maybe they have already ended negotiations and those 3 just haven't announced yet. But to me, the way I look at it,
you're going to take a more positive view.
This is my view of it is that this might signal that they're all coming and that this is the leftover money that they had to kind of go out and get somebody to try to fill in one of the holes.
Yeah, I would say that's sort of what I would lean toward as well, right? Because why would you not retain what you had before getting something else?
Yeah.
Right? Like you want to keep what you have. You want to keep the group, and it was such a special group last year that retaining as many of those players as possible, I think, is key. But then adding to it now is so huge. And I'm not super up to date with their recruiting, but I would assume that they're going to bring in some freshmen as well that'll be able to fill in some spots. And some of the players that were not real big factors last year, like I think it was
Luchard the year before.
Exactly. Kendra Luchard was basically not a factor, and all of a sudden she became one of their best players.
Yep.
And I guess she is now the most prolific base stealer in Big Ten history, which I saw her being called the other day. I was like, wow, that's just true, I guess. It's pretty wild to have that happen in one season. But no, I'm really excited for this move for Oregon softball, I should say, because it just feels like it's a really positive sign. And it's the first real move that they've had after the season, which was a great season, obviously.
Yep, no doubt. In other Oregon-related, Oregon's past recruiting news, Oregon State got a commitment yesterday from Kai Wheaton. Kai Wheaton, if that last name sounds a little bit familiar, is a cornerback in the 2026 class from Allen High School down in Texas. And yes, his father is Kenny Wheaton, was going to score. So
I've heard of him before.
He's Kenny Wheaton's son. And then Marcus Wheaton, who I believe is his cousin, I want to say, but I could be wrong on that, played at Oregon State. But Kai Wheaton came out and said that he's going to be playing at Oregon State. So cool there for Oregon fans to know that Kenny Wheaton will be back in the state watching some football, but he'll be up the road in Corvallis a little bit on that one there. So cool to see Kenny's kid carry on that legacy and that name. And, hey, if you're an Oregon fan, quite honestly, you're not too worried about Oregon State football now. You've kind of separated yourself from them. If Kai Wheaton's going to score, Kai Wheaton's going to score. As an Oregon fan, you should probably be rooting for that for the Beavs because it means that Kenny Wheaton will have a smile on his face.
Well, he's also a defensive back too, so it's you could have the replicated
correct
interception.
And let's face it, if Kai Wheaton has a big senior year at Allen High School, as we just said, these people aren't signing till December. Maybe Oregon comes in, maybe he switches, maybe a change. We'll just see. Like I say, I like
every Beaver fan just turned off their set.
I'm sure. But yeah, so that's Kai Wheaton is off to Oregon State. All right. Well, that is Kai Wheaton is the one, and then the next one. I see Oregon State's got a few others that are coming around, and we'll wait and see. Trent Bray, though, has been putting together a class of, it's kind of what they've been using. I mean, people talk about, they're going down to, playing the Mountain West schedule and these and that, and they're kind of getting these 3 stars. But that's kind of what Oregon State's built itself on in the past. I mean, the guys they've gotten and built it with have been 3 stars. It's kind of what, I was talking about with Stitchhead there about Oregon State baseball. Even though they're in an independent schedule, they brought in a Dax Whitney. Dax was a top, turned down $3 million in the pros, would have been a first-round pick, would have been, signed with anybody. If there was a worry out there among top recruits that, hey, Oregon State baseball is going to fall off the map, Dax Whitney doesn't sign up to go to Oregon State for 3 years, which he did. Trent Caraway, who came here a couple years ago, there's no doubt that it has been put together a recruiting class that's the right one for them. And Canada's done a really nice job of developing major league talent. And then again, like last year, same thing with Whitney, Avaya Arquette. There's a transfer portal guy who, again, can pick from around where he was the number 1 guy in the portal. He can pick anyone, and he picked the guy in the team in the independent program because, A, he knew that Cannon would put together a good enough schedule that scouts could see what he could do and his draft stock wouldn't get hurt, and B, he knew that Cannon had built a good enough roster that he could go in and be part of a team that could potentially make a run to the College World Series, which it did. So I think that we're watching with Oregon State baseball, no matter where they go, independent, Pac-12, old Pac-12, they've been able to keep that thing up there, and I anticipate the same thing happening. Now I'm interested to see if kind of football-wise, if Trent Bray can do the same thing and just kind of keep the same kids coming in they've had and build kind of the teams that Mike Riley was able to.
Yeah, and I don't think you can be too upset with what they've done, and I look forward to what they're doing at quarterback there as well. Got the transfer in with Malik Murphy.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this Beaver program is dead. Like, certainly there is some challenges, but I think that if there's something to be learned from what the baseball program has done. And just listen to Mitch Canham talk about, hey, like we just had, what we had to do.
Yep, no doubt. All right, this is Steve Mims filling in for Danny. This is the Danny and Justin Show. I'll be back in tomorrow. You're listening to Fox Sports Eugene and Newport.